So I know a lot of you are interested in intermittent fasting. You've been hearing about it often and wondering if it's something that you should try, or maybe you're just curious about what it can do for weight loss. So I'm going to give you the quick and dirty on intermittent fasting for healthy weight loss. I'll explain what it is in a very simple way, what my husband Paul and I recently found when we started trying it, why it helps with weight loss, plus some simple steps and tips to get you started if you do want to try it. So, intermittent fasting is just not eating for a period of time each day or week. There are multiple options for the length of time that you fast for, and this is called the fasting window. And fasting just means not eating. We all do this every day already. A good example of this is when you're sleeping. When you eat breakfast in the morning, you're breaking the fast because you're not eating all night while you're sleeping. And then when you have breakfast, that marks the end of that fasting period. Some people don't eat breakfast at all, so they fast until either a mid-morning snack or lunch without even really realizing it or calling it that. Some people don't eat any snack or dessert after dinner, and so they naturally fast from dinner until the first meal the next day. And the first meal of the day also includes drinks with calories in them, such as coffee with cream and sugar or a smoothie. The eating window is the period of time between your first meal of the day and your last meal of the day. So it's the period of time where you're eating. Or some people fast for 24 hours or even longer, so they would have an eating window as well, where they would get all of their food in. There are several health benefits to intermittent fasting, but I'm just going to be talking about the benefit of healthy weight loss in this episode. Now, fairly recently, my husband Paul and I started just naturally extending the period of time from when we wake up until when we have breakfast to just sort of try out the intermittent fasting thing, but in a gradual way. So this would just be extending that fasting window that we were already doing because of sleeping, right? And then just getting the food that we eat in just a little bit smaller window. We figured we could increase the fasting window and decrease the eating window over time if we wanted to. We're not doing it for the purpose of weight loss, but more so for other health benefits. And I wanted to just give it a try to see how it feels, and that way be able to provide some tips for you. So why intermittent fasting helps with healthy weight loss is that whenever you are eating, your blood sugar or blood glucose rises, and with that, insulin rises. Insulin is just a hormone whose main job is to move that sugar, that glucose, from your bloodstream into your body's cells to make energy. So this is a good thing. However, when you eat foods that are not whole foods and they're processed foods that have a lot of flour or sugar in them, your blood sugar rises significantly. Since your blood sugar rises significantly, insulin also rises significantly to counteract or move that, not so much counteract, but move all of that glucose into the cells. This negatively affects the ability of your body to burn fat, the rise in the insulin. It also negatively affects how full you feel. So if you've ever eaten chips or cookies, those are those processed foods that have a lot of like sugar or flour in them. Chips have a lot of salt. And you feel like you could keep going and you never really feel full from these. This is in part due to getting a dopamine hit from the flour, sugar, and salt, but also because of that significant rise in the insulin with the flour and sugar. What that ends up doing is it decreases your ability to actually feel full because of the way it affects another hormone called leptin. And then if you can't feel full on these foods, if that is not working well, working normally for you because of how the insulin affects that leptin, that can then lead to overeating, which certainly does not help with weight loss, right? So when you shorten that eating window, you're shortening the period of time where your insulin is up, is raised, and this enables you to actually then utilize your fat stores for energy. So that allows you to then burn fat, which of course assists with weight loss. So think about it this way. The more you sort of shrink down that eating window, the less your insulin is elevated. And when your insulin is not as elevated, your body is actually then able to utilize your fat stores as energy a little bit better. So if you begin and continue with intermittent fasting and find something that works for you, you're just better able to utilize fat as energy rather than mainly just using glucose as energy. You're still using glucose as energy, but you're also able to use fat as energy as well. And so this is called fat adaptation or becoming fat adapted. And that can actually benefit you in other things. Even if you're a runner, it can actually benefit you in long distance running because you have two big sources of energy instead of just utilizing all of that glucose and not having much reserve energy from fat. All right, so now I want to tell you how to make sure you're using intermittent fasting for healthy weight loss if you do want to try it. So I think the first most important step is just to make sure that you really understand what I just said about how it can help with weight loss. When you understand how, you're more likely to actually stick with it. So if you're a little bit unclear, then just go through the first part of this episode again, just to give it a re-listen. Now, the goal here isn't to eat as little calories as possible during that eating window. The goal is actually consistency. So if you want intermittent fasting to help with weight loss, you have to be consistent with it. To help with consistency, making it doable is really going to help you, especially in the beginning. And if this is new for you, I recommend easing in. You can try going all in if you want to. I think for a lot of people though, easing in is going to be easier. If you're not that hungry in the morning, just see if you can delay eating until you're actually feeling like kind of more moderately hungry. A lot of times mild hunger in the morning is actually just dehydration from going all night without drinking water. My husband Paul and I found this to be true. We would wake up mildly hungry, but notice that drinking a full bottle of water actually helped significantly with that. So that just sort of clued us in that, oh, maybe we were actually more dehydrated than truly hungry. And then we didn't start to get truly hungry until closer to mid-morning. And how I kind of knew that, at least, is that water was no longer satiating that hunger. I was still feeling hungry despite staying hydrated all morning, right? So even if you feel those mild hunger signals, I do also want to offer up to you that even if the bottle of water doesn't make those go away, you're not going to go into like starvation mode, right? We can totally tolerate some mild hunger sensations. We don't want to get to the point where we're overly hungry, because then what happens is it seems like an urgency to our brains, and then our brains are just like, I don't care what I eat, just give me food now because this is super uncomfortable, right? But mild hunger sensations, that's kind of just like your body suggesting to your brain that it might be time to eat, right? So you don't necessarily have to eat something if you're feeling just that mild amount of hunger for a little bit of time, right? It does get easier as you do get more consistent with the intermittent fasting. You kind of get used to that mild amount of hunger, and then eventually that does go away. But when you do really pay attention to, oh yeah, I'm feeling that mild bit of hunger, and that's perfectly okay. I can do a mild amount of hunger. It's very likely you'll be able to get through that mild amount of hunger much more easily. All right. So For you, I definitely recommend making those baby steps. So if you normally eat first thing in the morning when you get up, say at 6 o'clock, then just see if you can delay it until 7 or 8 o'clock. Now, certainly you don't want to be feeling lightheaded or anything like that, especially if you're going to be driving, if you're going to be taking care of young children, right? But if it's just some mild hunger sensations, like a little bit of that sensation in your stomach, that's perfectly okay. I will tell you this, many of my clients find that they actually aren't truly hungry until a little bit later in the morning or even lunchtime, but they have just been in the habit of eating breakfast in the morning before work. So interesting, right? So there is a very good chance that you'll find this to be true for you as well. Now, using intermittent fasting for healthy weight loss means that you actually have some weight to lose, right? Because if you don't, you definitely want to make sure that you're eating just as much food in that eating window as you were previously. And maybe you want to try intermittent fasting for health benefits rather than weight loss, such as what my husband Paul and I are doing. But if you are someone who is like, I'm happy at the weight that I am, I don't need to lose weight, you need to make sure that you're eating roughly the same amount of food during that shorter eating window, right? If you're actively trying to lose weight, then you can certainly eat a little bit less food in that eating window, and I recommend doing so. You'll probably find that you naturally are, though, just because you are paying a little bit more attention to when you're feeling more of like a moderate hunger, right? And not just eating breakfast out of habit in the morning. So that all combined with becoming fat adapted will help you with that weight loss. And if you don't need to or want to lose weight, but find that you're losing a little bit of weight while you're intermittent fasting, then just sort of bump up the food a little bit more during that eating window to maintain your weight. Now let's look at the other end of eating, nighttime. If you're delaying the time in the morning that you're going to want to be starting to eat, you're going to want to make sure that you're not extending your eating window in the evening, right? So you want to make sure that that fasting window in general is longer and that eating window is shorter than what you're currently doing. Otherwise, you're not really going to get the benefits, right? So as you see what feels right for you, you may find that a 16-hour fasting window with an 8-hour eating window feels really good. This is a very common one. Some people do a 20-hour fasting window with a 4-hour eating window. That might be a little bit more difficult for you to do in the very beginning. You might have to ease into this. The key is just to find what works for you. You want to make sure that you're feeling well. You will get used to that little bit of hunger that you might feel, and this typically does go away, like I mentioned. Your body does adjust as long as you're being consistent with that. If you're just sort of sporadically doing this, your body won't really adjust, and you'll probably continue to feel that bit of hunger in the morning. And keep in mind that drinks with calories in them count as food in a way because they also raise your blood sugar and insulin. Now, for my coffee drinkers, you can drink black coffee, just don't add a whole bunch of cream and sugar to it. If you absolutely cannot tolerate black coffee, if you did like a drop or two of cream, that's fine. For me, I need a tiny bit of cream to still enjoy my coffee, the flavor of it. And for my listeners who can't go to bed feeling hungry, that's me as well, you can certainly still have an evening snack, but just remember that your fasting period starts after that evening snack. So that means you might want to shoot for not eating anything until later the next morning or even lunchtime, right? And again, you're free to work up to this. I think when things are too difficult, when they're new, it's very easy to give up when it feels super uncomfortable. So that's why I think easing in is key. Some people may find that they're just the type of person that does well with jumping right in. So if that's you, feel free to just commit to a bigger fasting window early on. And with anything, you want to just give this a try and see how it works for your body. Not everything is going to work the same way for everyone. I recommend giving it a solid month of being consistent. Now, certainly, if you're easing yourself in, you may want to give yourself 2 months to see if it's effective for you because it might take you a bit of time to sort of work your way up to a fasting window that's actually going to start becoming effective. And like any new behavior that we want to start doing and encourage ourselves to do again and again to create that consistency or that habit, you also want to reward yourself. So this is a very important step. We're going to choose a non-food reward though. So pick some sort of reward for yourself for either every day or every week that you're trying this. Something that you can do daily is just put a little sticker on a calendar. You can use a habit tracker that you could find a ton of those online. So in general, daily rewards or more like immediate rewards tend to work better than weekly rewards because our brains like instant reward better than delayed reward, right? You can also just tell yourself that you did a really amazing job and then let yourself feel good about that. Good feelings also serve as a very good reward. All right, so that's what I have for you on intermittent fasting for healthy weight loss. When I help my clients with breaking bad eating habits and losing weight in a simple way that's sustainable, intermittent fasting is not something that I force them to do. However, and it's not even something that I necessarily suggest that they do. However, I do help them eat with intention. So this means eating due to hunger and not something else. So eating because you're choosing deliberately to eat due to hunger and not reactively due to something like an emotion or something like someone offering you something to eat, but you're really not hungry, right? And because of this, they find that they naturally end up kind of like intermittent fasting in a way because they're eating less often and in a shorter window. And if you're struggling to lose weight, a lot of times it's because of eating habits that are getting in the way. Common ones are emotional eating, that's just eating in response to an uncomfortable emotion to try to sort of numb yourself to the emotion or escape from it. Also using food as a reward, especially after a tough or challenging day, right? Or after an accomplishment, that can just make it that much harder to lose weight. Also, just feeling like you don't have enough time. So that sense of a lack of time due to like a busy schedule or just that constant feeling of rushing around can then lead you to eating things that are sort of those quick and convenient foods or takeout foods that are something that don't necessarily help your weight loss journey. So I have a free course with a workbook to help you with those 3 specific eating habits that career women constantly or usually find themselves struggling with. You can grab that free course with the workbook in the episode description. There's a link there. While you're down there, hit the like button and the subscribe button. That way you get new episodes as they come out weekly. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Become the person who loves her eating habits and her body so you can enjoy more of your life. I'll help. Start now by just setting up a time to talk with me by visiting katemjohnston.com/consult.